Hi everyone, Mark G here and welcome to Mark G's Music School. So today Ableton brought out 10.1. It's an incremental update and I've managed to get my hands on a copy. There's loads of new features to learn, so I'm going to take you through them right now. I've broken things down into 4 sections. The first section is the device additions and updates. We'll be talking about the wavetable synthesizer, the new channel EQ, the new delay effect, and also additions to Simpler and Echo. Then, of course, there's new shortcuts to learn. Bags of new things to learn here, so make sure you've got a pen and a piece of paper at the ready. Thirdly, it's automation. So you can now right-click and you can choose automation curves. You can also edit values very precisely. Thirdly, there's other improvements such as a VST3 instrument support. So let's get to this. There's a lot to learn. Come on, let's go. Right, guys, so the first thing that I want to go through today on this is the wavetable synth. So let's pull that across. I'm not going to show you how to use this because it's not a new synth. It's just got new functionality. So let's look at what that new functionality is. Very, very basically, a wavetable synth has a bunch of wavetables and you can cycle through the wavetables. So let me put a note in and close that up. Very simple. Put it where you can hear it. So that's a sine wave. We're cycling through the wavetable and you've just got all these different waves until you get to the square wave. Right, so new functionality on this. Very interesting because as it stood, you've got these different wavetables that you can cycle through using that arrow. And they've all got kind of different sonic qualities. And then you can modulate that wavetable, which produces interesting results. The thing that they've actually done to this now is they've enabled you to actually drag a sample into it. So it just creates its own wavetable based upon whatever sample you drag in. So let's look at this. We've got a bass. I mean, I don't know. I usually synthesize my basses, but let's use a bass sample. Something like that. Pull it in, and it's created all these different sonically sounding waves that you can cycle through. And when you do this, if I now drop down that is now the whole folder of what I dragged in. So I can flick through it and I've just got loads of different textures and sounds that I can use. Now, when it calculates these wavetables, it gets rid of any artifacts. If you want those artifacts in the wavetable, click this new raw button. And I mean, I could really hear I could hear something nice there that wasn't in the original file. If I kind of haven't got that anywhere there. You get some really nice glitchy sounds. So I'm going to leave that on. And just for the sheer hell of it, let me, one of my modulation sources, LFO1, go to the matrix, LFO1, I'm going to put on the position. LFO obviously is a waveform that goes up and down, up and down. And yeah, I've just made that out of a bass sound. And another thing they've introduced on this actually is worth a mention is you've got a random selection here where I can apply a certain amount of random modulation to the pitch or the volume or even the position in the wavetable, which is going to be really, really good for deep electronica music. So yeah, that's pretty much the wavetable covered. I think that's all the new stuff that I found. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, let's move on. Right, so the second effect I just want to tell you about is the channel EQ. This is a really easy one to explain. I don't need to go into depth. You've got the low, you've got the mid, you've got a sweep on the mid, and you've got high, and you've got a high pass filter at 80 Hertz, which takes the bass out. That's pretty much it. I can't see myself using that a lot, but obviously there's going to be an application for it somewhere for somebody. So yeah, that's it for the channel EQ. Okay, so the third new addition to Ableton 10.1 that I want to talk you through here is the delay effect. I've set up a really simple track. It's just got a kick, sound, voice, and loop, and this is what it sounds like. Electronic. It's not going to win any prizes, but it needs to be basic so that you can understand what's going on. Right, so on the kick, let's solo the kick. Just your standard kick. I'm going to put the delay effect on the top of it. Let me talk you through this. You've got the dry wet control, which is how much of the effect you're going to apply. You've got feedback for the delays that you're about to introduce. So when you do introduce a delay to the sound, you can feed it back on itself and it just keeps going. So I'm going to turn the feedback right down. So we're not even bothering with feedback at the moment. We've got this little window, which means that when a delay is introduced, you can actually shape the filter on it. If I put it up that way, it would be really high and top end. If I put it down that way, whatever delay I introduce would be really bassy. So I'm going to keep that in the middle at its default. I've got modulation here, which allows me to modulate two different parameters. One is that filter, so the kind of movements I was doing there, I can actually make Ableton do it on its own. And it also modulates this time thing, which is the delay times, which is this section here. Just before I go into delay times, you've also got different modes, and I'll talk you through those as well. But let's keep this really simple. We're going to talk about delay times. You've got two buttons here, sync. So this is the left channel, which is your left speaker, and this is the right channel, which is your right speaker. At the minute, both of these are exactly the same delay times. I can disengage this and have these at different delay times, but we're going to keep it dead simple. We're going to have them at the same delay time. So if I press 1, it jumps to 1, both jump to 1, both jump to 5. So we're going to keep it on 1. You can take the sync button off and then you can dial in your own settings. Now, if you put it in sync, it's synced to the host tempo, which is 128. If you take that off, then like say you're manually adjusting the times of the delays. So delay is a sound is going to happen and then you're going to delay that sound. So if I keep this at 50%, whatever the delayed sound happens that comes in is going to be at the same volume level as the sound that was originally there. Now let's look at this and put this in context. We've got a kick drum, so let me just disengage the delay first. I don't want you getting confused. And back to here, let's listen. Very simple bass drum. Now, if I wanted to put a delay, let's say there, on there, on there, on there, and I wanted the track to sound like this. Right, I can do that with the delay effect. I don't have to draw it in. I'll take that off. Now, the way I do that is each one of these notes is a 16th of a note. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it goes all the way up to the end of 16. So if I want a delay to be introduced there, that's the first 16th, and that's the next 16th. So just let me delete that. If I switch the delay on, this is what these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 16 mean. So if I have it on 1, then the delay is going to be introduced after 1/16, which would be just like I demonstrated on the clip. So it would go there. If I put this on 2, then it would take 2/16 for it to come in. So the delay would happen there, there, and so on. So let's just see what that sounds like. Again, 50%, no feedback because I don't want to get complicated at the minute, and no filter on the delay. So it's doing it at that point that I drew it, first of all. We'll put this at 2, it's putting it there, and there, and there. If I do it at 3, it's putting it just before there, just there, just there, just there. Right, now let's just take this back to, well, we'll leave it on 3, okay? I'm going to turn the feedback up, and it kind of feeds the delay back on itself. If I press stop start with the feedback down, it just does the one delay and then it stops. If I press put the feedback up, if I press stop start, you can hear it feeding back on itself. And yeah, you just got to use your ears and decide what you want to happen. I mean, you know, you might have a track where the kick comes out and you want it to do that in the sequence, so you'd have that feedback all the way up. So let's kind of get that right, and then I can adjust this according to what I want. Yeah, I'm liking that. Cool. I'm not going to go through any of the modes at the moment because it's a bit easier to explain when I take the sync off, and it actually sounds better, more obvious when I take the sync off. So that to me sounds good, but I want to make that second delay into a sub bass line maybe. So let me put a filter on that second delay. Now, if you haven't got headphones on, you might struggle to hear that. So I'll keep it as high as I can. Around about there. So we've got a really nice movement to that kick drum now. So let's go to the sound. So, very clean sound, uninteresting sound. Let's move the delay down, and this time we're going to turn the sync off, and we're going to use this time feature. So we're going to dial in our own setting. It's not going to be synced to the host tempo, and this works really good on sounds. So feedback up. And let me move this around. Yeah, I mean, this sounds good. I think at this particular point, it'd be a good idea to go through these different modes. When I move this time, if this is on repitch, can you hear every delay kind of has, when I move this, I have to move this, it kind of changes in pitch. It doesn't, the delays don't stay the same pitch, which is an effect you might really want to have. It can make sounds really interesting. Fade, it doesn't repitch the sound when I move this delay. So it's always keeping the same pitch. Jump, when I move this, it just jumps the delay, and it can introduce really kind of strange glitchy artifacts, which I'm not liking. It's like a digital click, which I don't like. So I prefer to put it on the fade there. Now let's kind of get this sounding good. So we know that this filters the delays. So let's. I like that, but I now want to modulate this. So let's look at the modulation section. Right, so what I want to do is I want this to go effectively like this. But I don't want to use my mouse, and this is how we do it. So we're going to apply modulation to the filter. So I'm going to turn it up 100% on the filter. So this is only affecting the filter. Now the rate of that modulation. So modulation is it's going from left to right. This is like an LFO, which is a wave that goes up, down, up, down, up, down. And the rate that it goes up, down, so if it's going really slowly, it's a low rate. So it would be very slow down there. And it would be, whoa, it'd take ages to get back. And if it's a really fast rate, it'd be like, brrr, really fast. So this would therefore be going from left to right really fast. So let's keep that down low and get it where I can hear it going from left to right. That's too fast. Might put this in the middle. Now you can hear it going down its LFO, up, down. So I've kind of got that set quite nicely. But the great thing about this modulation is I can also apply it to these delay times. So let's do that. And then I'm going to mess with the delay times. Turn the feedback up. And now if I click repitch, you should be able to hear the pitches jumping. Which is really complicating the sound too much, and it doesn't work in the context of this sound, so I'm going to leave it on fade. So we've got a bit of interest there on that sound. So now we're going to use a voice. Are we going to bring in all the knowledge that we've learned, and we're just going to mess with the dials and see if we can make the voice sound good. So let's first of all put the dry wet up, and I'm going to get the filter on the delays correct. And as luck would have it, I've got a loop here which is going to kind of give me the drive of the track, and then I'm just going to play with this voice and get it right. Might knock the sync off, see what it sounds like. It's almost got a flangey kind of feel to it. So I like that, but I want it kind of filter it like I did before. So let's try that. And straight away we've got interest in the track. So that is the new delay effect. Let's move on. So two final things that I've noticed as far as plugins go is they've added something to Echo called equal loudness. Now I've got this loop here, this 303 loop. And if I switch the Echo on 50% dry wet, it sounds like this. There's a slight difference between the dry and the wet sounds there. If you right click, there's now a contextual menu and you click equal loudness. And it sounds a lot better. Let me just quickly do that again. So really nice difference there. So just make sure you're aware of that equal loudness switch. And then I'm going to go to the final thing here, which is the sampler. No, the simpler. The sampler had something here on the amplitude envelope, which is a loop mode. Now, it's set to none, right? So if I've pulled a sample into here, it sounds like this. I've actually drawn the note in. So it's going through its attack, decay, sustain, and release phase. And obviously, I can change that there. So decays to sustain, and then it releases. But here right now, I've got this, which wasn't there before. And what this does is, once it releases, if the note is held, which it is because I drew a really long note in, then if it gets to its decay stage, if this is on loop mode, it returns and triggers again according to the time here. So if I actually click this down to... So it gets to its decay stage and then it triggers again after 1 millisecond. It's really good for kind of glitchy stuff. You can do some clever stuff with it. Now that's with the manual time, but of course with Ableton you can sync it to the beat. And just the regular sync and trigger mode as well. So that's really all that's different about the simpler, but nice little addition anyway. Right, so I was going to do automation next, but I'm actually going to do keyboard shortcuts first because that's more logical with some of the automation. I think I'm going to be using some of the shortcuts, so really it's better to show you the shortcuts first. So let's look at this. I've got a track up here that I've done with a student of mine, Jay Tommy, who is not even known yet because we've not launched his page, but this is a track I've been working on, which enables me to show you the shortcuts in a real situation with an arrangement that's kind of already happening. So I've put the shortcuts on the side here. I've written them down. If you're part of my school, then you're going to have this in your folder. If you haven't, just let me know. First shortcut, unfold selected tracks. So what's happening now, if I click a group there and I want to, now, if you don't know, these are grouped. We've grouped everything. So this is the kick group, that's the bass group. It's got other channels inside the groups. So if I want to open that now, it's U, and close it is U. If I want to open that track now, is U, close it is U. I can actually use the Alt and U key to unfold all the tracks. So Alt, look at that, absolutely brilliant. So if I kind of, think my arrangement's too messy, I want to fold everything up, it's Alt U, gets everything folded. If I just want to unfold that group, obviously don't press the Alt key, just press that key. Now, if I want to distribute the heights of these the same, so let's say that's like that, and this is closed up, that's closed up. Well, now all I have to do is press the H key, and everything gets distributed across the height of the screen. Also, if I'm zoomed in here, if I press the W, it actually zooms out to my whole track. I can press the shortcut. I can press these two buttons up here to do exactly the same thing. So please remember that, very, very important. I can zoom in to a selection on the screen space, which is Z. This is so useful, right? So if I'm going to select that, I just press Z, and wow, it just zooms straight in. I can zoom straight out by pressing the X key. Now this is useful. So let's say the track is playing. So this is the track and it's going along twice the speed of sound, and I'm like, my God, I need to quickly go into this part before it gets there. Click it, press Z, I'm straight in there. I can do any quick adjustments that I want, as in chop it, I'm pressing Control E. I can go in there and quickly reverse that part, and everything's done super quick now. Watch, dead quick, right? Okay, don't forget the Z and the X. That's amazing. Now, before zooming in, I mean, you can zoom in using this magnifying glass at the top, and I'm kind of so used to doing that. I do that all the time. But if you don't want to use that mouse key, let's say we're at this point in the track, I want to quickly zoom in, it's going to be plus. I'm pressing the plus key, or I'm pressing the minus key. Again, this you might not use this all the time, but it's really interesting. Put your marker there quickly, and you're in. Or you can, like I say, Z, X, plus, minus. If I press the Alt key whilst I'm doing the plus or the minus, so Alt, I can zoom in the height or zoom out the height, zoom in the height, zoom out the height. There's a way that I've been doing that already, which is pressing Alt and the mouse scroll wheel. And I think you can do all this now on the Mac. I'm using a PC at the moment, but I think you can do this now on the trackpad, which is just brilliant. I haven't actually experimented on my MacBook yet, but I will be doing that. But there's been no time. So, so S, before the shortcut S was to show all tracks. Well, now it's to solo the track that you're on. So I'm going to solo that track. And look, just highlight the track. And you don't actually have to click the track name here. I could click within the arrangement and it's just like solo. So I want to kind of go to that. I'm thinking, right, I want to solo that drum loop, S. I'm just quickly want to solo the group. Maybe just want to solo all the percussion. Absolutely great on solo. Another thing that is very useful is if I've got a bunch of samples. Now, there's no point in doing this on MIDI, so let me find something that's actually a sample. In fact, that's all MIDI. So we'll go to the drum loops, okay? So I'm going to solo this. So S, solo. So we're just working on this drum loop now. I want to zoom in that track height. Now, remember, you can press Alt and plus to zoom in, or I can use my scroll wheel, but I'm going to use the new way, so Alt and plus. If I hover over this part, at the minute I can't see any fades. If I press F on my keyboard, and notice how I'm looking down on my keyboard, that's because these are new shortcuts, but I need to get to the point where I'm not looking at my keyboard. And you can see that handle there, so I can move that handle and fade it in. If I wanted to zoom into that bit so I can see a little bit better, then it's the plus now. And press the F key, and I can then move that fade in so it kind of fades in nicely. So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily need to do that on a drum loop, but at least I'm showing you the principle. And also, last thing, which isn't a quick keyboard shortcut, but I'm going to show you anyway, is if this arrangement overview, man, this is so useful. This is now you can now resize it. I can go in, I can choose any part of, so look, I mean, I'm just kind of doing all this navigation purely on the arrangement overview. So if I wanted to go to the break, I now know I'm at the break. Here, I want to zoom everything to the track height. So press the H key. I'm in there straight away. And yeah, the colors are really nice now. They're matching everything. And obviously I can close that up. That's it for the keyboard shortcuts. Let's move on to automation. Okay, let's talk automation. So I've got this track up again, the same track that I was using for keyboard shortcuts. And we're going to go to something that needs to be automated. So I'm thinking this bass line here in this track. So let's listen to this bass line. We've got a filter on it, and it basically goes up and down. So I've got a part here with nothing on it. I want to make an S curve on this. I select which part I want the S curve to be on, right click, and I've got all these shapes. Now these weren't down here, so we're going to use that S shape there. So I'm going to zoom into that S shape. I can adjust the strength of the S bend using the Alt key. So if I press Alt, can you see it's got that little kind of sign on it? So I can adjust these by doing that. I could maybe move that up slightly, that one down slightly. I'll move that one down slightly, and that one up slightly. Right, so I'm kind of happy with that, but I'm thinking, you know, maybe it needs to be centered more in the middle and not go down so much. So the way automation transform works, it puts handles on the left and the right. So if I select the bit, can you see these handles up at the top? There's one there, there's one at the bottom. There's actually one on the right and there's one on the left. All four of them are really useful. So with the top one, I can drag down like that. I can drag up with the bottom one. I can drag up like that. I can drag down. I can also stretch this. Now that is awesome. All right, so yeah, stretch that. Let's do it on the other side just to prove it works. Yeah, I could stretch that there as well. But you know what? Maybe I'm thinking to myself, well, the filter should go down, not up, and then up, not down. So I can inverse this. And to invert it, you press the Control key whilst you do it. So look at the way that's now being inverted. Superb. Love it. So let's just keep that way because I don't want it inverted. So let's just listen to what that sounds like. And yeah, there's not enough movement on that, I'm thinking to myself. So drag it, get one of the handles, move that there. And then take that automation and of course copy, I can duplicate it, which is Control D. But that goes down too much. So yeah, it's just a case of grabbing those handles, moving it up. And just to the point at the bottom where it's right, and let's see what happens now. And that section obviously needs work. Cool. Right, so that's the S-curves or whatever curves, you know, you've got your choice of curves, what you want. So just remember to select the portion that you want to apply automation to. You've got all of these things to play with. So let's now look at the breakpoints. So I'm going to take a section here which has got no automation. Now, usually if I get my pencil tool, which is B, and I move this, then the breakpoints are created on the grid. So this is now getting quite complex. I've got all these steps and stuff on my breakpoints. I've got an adaptive grid, so I could zoom in, of course, and it makes smaller breakpoints, which is cool. But if I now knock this grid off, which is Control and 4, then when I draw these breakpoints in it looks like it's going to be dead complicated, right? But then I'll let go and it actually makes it really, really simple. So if I now draw it, if I put the grid back on, you can see it's made these breakpoints dead simple. It's just like, there's not billions of breakpoints. And then I can obviously move in and do what I've got to do. But so that's the pencil tool is simplified when you deactivate the grid. Okay, so I'll take the pencil tool off. Just for now, I just want to show you a bit in this, which is quite complex. This is made in a previous version of Ableton. So this point here, obviously, there's tons of breakpoints, and I want it simplified. If I want to go in and make edits, this is a bit complicated. So if I right-click, simplify envelope, wow, look at that. It's made hardly any breakpoints, which is now dead easy now for me to go in and just mess around, do what I've got to do. I press Alt and adjust the shape of that S bend. So that simplifies things greatly. If I right click a breakpoint, so let's say this, I actually want it to go down more. I could go edit value, and if I put in 400, it'll take it down to 400. If I'm actually hovering over and it kind of shows that a new breakpoint is going to be created. If I right click this now, instead of drawing it, I can actually add the value. So I'll take that right down to there. So now just very, very easy to add value. So that's really automation taken care of. Let's move on to the final bits. So finally, extra things that we can do with Ableton 10.1 that don't fall into the above categories. First thing is major sidechain freezing. So at the minute, this particular track, if I solo it, when it gets to here, I think, is sidechain to the kick. If I click that button, you can see that's sidechain to the kick. Previously, we could not freeze this. I'm going to click freeze and show you. Hey presto, we can freeze it, which is great for sharing your projects with other people if they haven't got other plugins in your chain. We couldn't previously do that. Brilliant addition. And also sidechaining for other plugins now is a lot easier to route. Let's put FabFilter Pro Q3, which is one of my favorite plugins. I recommend this to all my students. I'm going to put FabFilter Pro Q3, which is an EQ with a spectrum analyzer on it, on this bass group. So solo the bass group, so you know what it is. And you can see the spectrum. Super, right? But I want to sidechain this now to the kick. Before, I had to do a whole load of complex routing. Now all I have to do is drop down on that, and the kick is now sidechained into this plugin. And there I can see the spectrum analyzer of the kick below the spectrum analyzer of what group this is on or what channel this is on. This is so powerful because I can see how this all relates to each other now. If you're going to do this with FabFilter Pro Q, just make sure that side chain is on, okay? And yeah, so that's third-party plugins. A lot of third-party plugins are going to be a lot easier to use when you're using side chaining now. Let's see what else there is. VST3 support, which has been a long time coming. But everybody who was moaning about VST3 not being supported in Ableton now, bingo, it's done. You can do it, which is awesome. Another thing here is export audio video. You can include your return and master effects on your export, or you can not include them. The choice is yours. Final things really is added support for Complete Control S Mark II and for Complete Control M32 keyboard controllers. I'm sure there's little tiny other things that I've missed, but I think I've really covered the bulk of it there. Right, so that's it as far as my Ableton 10.1 update tutorial goes. I hope you've learned loads of stuff. Remember, the best way to learn this is actually to go through the video, make bullet points, and commit stuff to memory, especially with the keyboard shortcuts. They're so important, and your workflow will be massively improved. Right, join my Facebook group, search Marky G's Music School. I also offer courses. You can get those at markyg.com. Just follow the links to the music school. And also you can PM me on social media. I'm not unapproachable, so if you've got questions to ask me, please do. Okay, until next time, enjoy making music. Peace out.